Video cut off, but it was okay. I was on my way to the gym anyway. Got a pretty good workout in, but I'm gonna pick up where I left off. So I was saying it's really intimidating when you see people's lives in this state like slowly begin to like decay and show the face behind the veneer, and you can't really do anything to like help these people. You can't steer them right because they don't want to be corrected. They don't want to like have an accountability of their actions. They don't want somebody telling them what to do. And that's understandable to like a certain degree. Nobody wants to like have their lives continuously scrutinized and lorded over by anyone, you know? But when you show an active reciprocity to truth or a framework of morals or logic, reason, whatever, when you begin to use these things like a cudgel and a weapon against people, pointing out like something isn't right about the way you justify the qualities of your behavior, and you can't get through to them that you're not trying to attack or condemn them, but they'll point out that you are, and then go on the offensive and do exactly what they accuse you of doing. That's very fucking like concerning. It's borderline delusional. Um, it makes an obfuscation and a justification for them to do whatever the fuck they want in life and play and prey on other people's like reality, like background characters. And they basically are indicating and showing they don't have rules, they don't have principles, they don't demonstrate, whether it be, you know, your morality or lack of morality, whatever. Um, at the very least, you need some kind of rational, logical framework to navigate the world. You have to have an understanding of how human beings work and operate, communicate, the effects that your actions have on the world around you, and the fact that there is justifiable consequences for doing things or acting in a certain character that makes you a detriment or a hazard to other people or yourself. That's when there's a necessary time to step in and say, hey, like, there needs to be a course correction, or hey, can we communicate and talk about this? When people want to vehemently attack you for telling them you have a certain problem or a certain issue in your life that clearly is being hidden, but is starting to like seep between the cracks in your armor and show it's having a detrimental effect on your life or the lives of people around you, and you cannot get through to that person, they justify their behaviors or demonize your behaviors for quote unquote judging them or condemning them, but you're not doing 90% of the time. You're not trying to actively attack somebody. You're trying to show you care. You're trying to show you're concerned about their health and well-being. You're trying to show you have concerns about the dynamic of somebody close to you. When that's just bashed and thrown to the wayside, and even the people you are incredibly close with, when they demonstrate this kind of like lack of accountability and condemnation of other people, pointing out to them they have a problem and an issue, I really question whether or not that person developmentally is as much like a stable, rational benefit to the lives of the people they play a role in. Not to society, but just the framework of how they navigate oftentimes is dependent on their relations to other people. Oftentimes they're not independent. They're codependent on how they garner and gain the resources necessary to continue perpetuating their lifestyles and survive. It's very concerning to know they potentially like have a multitude of connections to people, that they very well might be either flying under the radar with all these kinds of rationales and justifications, or even, basically having a armada of people to defend and justify them through how they interact, how the behavior appears on the surface, on the external, in the day-to-day, doesn't always show the reality of the lifestyle that underlies that. And dealing with this and addressing this is the hardest thing in the hardest circumstance, because you can't just pry into another person's life and lifestyle and life history, without them essentially wanting to address or consenting to address it. There's a lot of individuals like this who will go their entire lifespan doing very questionable things to themselves and to other people around them, and just basically not have any kind of moral consequence for it or civil consequence for it. They fly so well under the radar and use the cracks of opportunity in their free time to, exercise this kind of shadow, this subconscious behavior, because it goes unnoticed and unpunished. And they target people from time to time. They look and go hunting for people they can weaponize their own frame and state of mind on and project onto. It's a psychosocial predatory behavior. One sec. One of the scarier things too is how they try to cloak and push their own issues and problematic behavior on another person, and wear the veneer of what the other person is going through. They try to like role reverse. And this is something that I've experienced. This is something that a lot of people have experienced. It's fucking terrifying, because they begin to act and take on the mannerisms. They're copycatting like the same qualities of behavior you're doing, and you know that they're doing it. You're watching them doing it, and you know that underneath that they're putting on an act, they're putting on a facade, they're analyzing your behavior and basically like mirroring and copycatting you and weaponizing that against you trying to stoke aggression and agitation in you to make you an aggressor. It's it's very fucking dark. I see why a lot of people scrutinize this stuff as being like borderline demonic by nature. It plays and preys off the like mechanism of the subconscious trickster archetype in how our mind and frame of mind works. It's this kind of very like dangerous, oftentimes weaponized child aspect that stays in them, that they know that they can get away with and use and utilize and weaponize to their advantage when navigating social situations. And the reality is it brings up a lot of like behavioral quandaries and what's justifiable and what's acceptable when you essentially know you can get away with distorting truth and manipulating people and kind of like lying to people's face and putting on the persona and acting your way out of situations that are a detriment to you by deflecting your behavior and putting the blame on other people. Not only is it scary because you're watching somebody in real time as they do that, whether it's to you or to another person, you're watching a person demonstrate they really have no kind of moral framework or idea of real identity or characteristics of like logic and reason beneath that. It's just a persona. It's a face. They basically walk in their life, in their body, using their body, their character, their mannerisms to serve as an apparatus to navigate and get what they want, whatever it might be, out of people. It's an act. It's a facade. Not only are they doing that, it's scary because they do this kind of psychologically terrifying thing where they like steal your face. They steal your emotional and psychological reactions to their behavior and immediately begin to like copycat it and chameleon under that guise and then stoke your aggression and fervor to make you seem like an aggressor. It's some of the most like disturbing, psychologically damaging thing you can experience, especially when there are potential consequences and hazards to that being weaponized on you as a victim of that. Put somebody in a role in a situation where they actively have to be around a person like this on a regular basis, where this person already knows they can succeed in getting away with this kind of manipulation. They're always going to be in a position where basically they're protected or justified or can hide their behavior. It becomes very difficult to do anything but walk away from that scenario and situation. And that person's effectively jeopardized your life and your lifestyle as a result and a consequence of that behavior. Because now you have to find a different situation to live in or work under or anything. It skews your whole own course and trajectory towards whatever it is you are working towards or trying to make happen in your own life, somebody basically entangles themselves in a game of playing with your thoughts and emotions just for the hell of it, or to benefit off that. And oftentimes those people hunt and seek that conflict repetitively. They are predatory. They look for people to attack and demonize, and fucking all the while the circumstance of their behavior goes completely and entirely unnoticed. It's very terrifying. It's horrific. It is psychologically damaging unless you know this mechanism at play. You have to study and analyze it in order to understand it, and learning that in itself, what might have happened to you that made you have to study this in the first place. Learning this kind of behavioral mannerism that's in certain individuals and groups of people, that you can be susceptible or targeted by people like this. It's very fucking terrifying. Now, the reality is, once you see through it, and once you learn about it, and once you know how to navigate it, the thing is, everything that you get put through and everything you had to deal with, it's not that it necessarily falls off immediately, but it's recoverable from, because you begin to realize circumstantially that you were a victim of a person preying and playing on your thoughts and emotions. And once you know how it works, once you understand the behavior behind it, you slowly begin to like grow a thicker skin. A. B, everything that you went through, you begin to understand why it happened, and you become so privy to it that it stops doing so much damage to you psychologically and emotionally. You begin to realize, like, oh, I was targeted by an individual who's just psychologically fucked up. And then it becomes kind of slowly you recover and you tend to yourself and you go about your own business and just try your best to like work through that tough circumstance of like what you've been put through. Eventually you can recover from it. Eventually it just stops affecting and afflicting you, because you realize, like, I was being targeted by a grown juvenile child. Basically a super weaponized toddler's temper tantrum. And when you look at it that way, when you understand it, it's not that it isn't a painful experience to go through or have to be put through, because it is. But it just loses its power and its potency, because now you understand what's going on. You understand the dynamic at play, and you understand how to, like, you begin to develop the ability to avoid that or step outside of that and focus more on your own life. You don't have to necessarily interact with these people. You just begin to take accountability for your own life and your actions and your behavior again, and focus on building yourself up to be more resilient. It can have long-term kind of like emotional and psychological damage that comes with it that you have to navigate. Unfortunately, it happens. It's literally somebody trying to drive you crazy. But in many aspects, I believe that it's honestly a lot easier to get over once you understand the mechanics and the mechanisms behind it, and you have the wherewithal and the courage in you to stand in the face of that kind of fearful aspect of human behavior and not let it affect you. You begin to brush it off like water off a duck's back, because you realize it's juvenile, it's childish. It can have super scary consequences and detrimental effects, but that more acts as a buffer a lot of times in discerning individuals to push them out of that circumstance and more towards a better circumstance in the first place. You know when you're being played, you know when you're being had, and you know something's up. So it begins to guide you in the right direction to, get the fuck away from that circumstance. After a period of time, you know, like, I'll be honest, it just kind of starts to fall away. You begin to realize, oh, I got played, I got had. This bullshit game that somebody like co-opted me into over their own fucking vanity complex and their life affairs and their lifestyle. Like, I don't have to have anything to do with that. I can walk away from that. It can be hard. If it's like a familial dynamic, I know and understand that. I'm unfortunately in the same family situation, having to deal with all the drama that comes with it because I don't really have the resources and the ability right now with everything I'm trying to do to get out of that. I'm doing what I can to like earn a decent amount of income to be able to like maybe find an apartment and a roommate and go back to school. Like, I'm doing everything that I can, and all I could do is just be patient and separate from that environment whenever I can. Sometimes that's all you can do. You just navigate the waters very cautiously and carefully, focus more on yourself and what you got going on, and keep trying to make your life happen. At the end of the day, that's all you're trying to do. You come to get a little bit of resolve and strength out of these negative situations and circumstances by growing autonomy in yourself, growing the ability to continue working towards cultivating yourself and your goals. That's sometimes all you got to do. That's all you got to focus on. It sucks. It really does suck sometimes, but it's a mendable thing and a process you can get through, and it doesn't necessarily jeopardize your life and your goals and your ambitions as much as you might think it does. It's people playing and preying on your insecurities and your fears and trying to nitpick and get at you, because what they're doing is projecting that fear that they have for themselves onto other people. It's like a scary fucking laboratory experience where they're using you as a test subject and fucking with you by projecting their own insecurities and hangups that they can't deal with onto another person so they can fight that with their like internalized aggression and angst and agitation and bitterness at life. All you have to do is not succumb to that and be able to walk away from it rather than engaging it. It's concerning when a person has like a maladaptive tendency and behavior that affects an entire familial dynamic. Then maybe it has to get a little bit messy. But the best thing you can do is just hold a little bit of courage and optimize your life to be on the right path and the right track. And oftentimes, the cracks in the armor are going to show up when they start getting addressed by other people. If it gets to the point where it needs to be brought up to other people, it starts to show, and other people start to see it. You're not the one fucking up. You're being conditioned by somebody who wants you to fuck up. I think circumstantially, the worst thing about this is it's a societal dynamic that overtakes certain people looking to have a kind of overreach into other people's lives. And that becomes a systemic problem and issue that we have to like deal with, because these people can be authority figures, your bosses, people in your life that just are in your neighborhood. We see this playing out all the time on the internet. It's fucking ridiculous, and it's like living in an episode of South Park half the time when it transpires, but it can get really fucking hairy and nasty in certain situations and circumstances behind closed doors where these people can get away with bringing out the real internal ugliness that they have. And like I have stated and said in the past, I don't really condemn and judge a whole lot of people because I'm not a fucking perfect human being. I got my own flaws and my own things and issues and hangups that I've had to work on circumstantially my entire life. And even then, I fall short. No pun intended. I fall short all the time. It happens. The best thing you can do is align yourself with things that guide you in a right direction, that give you a little bit of motivation and courage and hope to cultivate yourself and cultivate a better life. You can't let people like knock you down so easily. Because if they can, they're going to do it every fucking opportunity that presents itself. They're just going to continuously do that because in reality, what it really boils down to, it's this weird parasitic sadomasochistic obsession with seeing other people fail because deep down that person feels that they themselves are in a quality and quantity of lack over their own life, their own ambitions, whatever. They need to see other people below and beneath them in order to feel like their life is justified. It doesn't matter how much they succeed in or how much that kind of like psychosocial behavior gets them out of life. They rise to certain positions of power and dominion over other people to be able to weaponize this behavior. And they try to justify it and hide behind the same mask and the veneer, and that's why it's difficult to fucking navigate and be around people um, who show this kind of like dynamic of behavior. Um, it's very difficult to navigate the waters of society and civilization when it's a widespread systemic issue that is just cultivated by the human condition being what it is. That doesn't mean it's justifiable. It doesn't mean that you should just lie down and take it. It doesn't mean that the things that they have gone through warrant and justify that behavior. The reality is we all got issues and hangups that we deal with. It's just some people can like endure and go through that better than others. They swallow their fucking pride and humble up, and they learn how to like move through life when it tests them. Dealing with this situation and circumstances, there are moments where I've fallen short and been pushed to my limit on like what I could take and handle, and I've taken action um, as a consequence of other people just fucking pushing me over the edge, and I've had to deal with the fallout of everything that comes with that. It sucks. It it's like being pressed momentarily into hell to have to deal with a hell on earth. There comes a point in time where people justifying their behaviors and their actions and the things that they can get away with, they begin pushing the boundaries of what they can get away with, thinking consequences and rules don't apply to them because they could just hide behind a persona. Inevitably, what happens if you're not a victim but a survivor of this kind of circumstance, you keep on the right path and you keep doing what you're doing, it's going to show up and people are going to take notice. Their behaviors and their actions and their habitual issues catch up to them, and it begins to bleed through how they put on the mask, it slowly begins to erode, and you can tell. So it's a long-standing endurance game that you have to deal with. You have to learn how to just navigate and work on yourself and focus on your own development, work on your goals, work on your ambitions, and keep a spark alive in you. Whatever the fuck it is, you really need that. And this world makes it so fucking rough. So fucking rough. But you need something that gives you a reason and a meaning and a purpose to continue, that allows you not to focus your life's direction on people trying to fuck with your life. Over time, a long spanning time, just stop tolerating the bullshit, not in a fucking like aggressive way where you're playing into the game they want to play with you. You just begin to like be able to be like, ah, and walk the other direction, because you just get tired of dealing with it. You develop that Alan Wattsy kind of he talks about a father and a son, like he's talking about like a grumpy kind of like alcoholic dad and a son. Over time, that relationship kind of spirals out of control, and like they blow up and they fight each other, one another. Out over a, After a while, the son just begins to kind of like realize the dynamic at play and see through it. He's experienced enough, and he just starts to see that old man. He's like, "You will fucking bastard, you," and you can deal with it. It actually just becomes kind of a humorous circumstance. Not that these kinds of circumstances are always humorous. They're quite scary, I know, but he he developed the wherewithal and the courage and the strength to endure that circumstance. And after a while, when he like saw through what it was, it just became stupid to him. It became silly. It became asinine. Like the thought process reached him, like, I'm letting this person like control like the way and the persuasion of my life and how my life is going when I'm trying to do everything right. And I'm giving my entire life path over to the scrutiny and the judgment of a clown, you know? That you just begin to realize how foolish it is, how foolish this kind of game is. And it always ends up catching up to these people because they can't help themselves. That's the reality of what happens. They keep pushing the boundaries and the limits of what they can get away with because they're addicted to that. And eventually it fucking catches up.